So as I need to test all the bits of cable that became faulty, I'm going to need the plug sorted out and the circuit board wired up, so that's what we're going to do today. So first we need to strip this back a little bit. We just carefully cut the cable. Now this cable is signal cable, sometimes they call it fire alarm type cable, something like that. You need a 10 core cable that's quite small, but it doesn't have to carry any real current, so there we go, that's more than enough because the plug's very short. Now the next problem you need to overcome is that when you do this up, it will just slide on here, which isn't really great. So I've got some bits of shrink sleeving which I'm going to see if these will shrink down enough. Probably need a few layers, we'll see. I have my unreliable blowtorch. Of course on camera, there we go. So we'll just see if this will shrink onto it. Well, there's one layer. We'll probably need at least 2 layers. So that when we come to, so it shouldn't fit through that. There you go. So when we come to clamp that, it'll get a bite, and it'll then hold on to this. It depends what cable you can get, but it needs to be 10 core basically. You're not actually going to use all 10, but yeah, you use 9, but you know, you might if you can find 9 core. Good for you. I don't think I will. Then remember to it doesn't matter at this point because you can always slide it in from the other way, but it's best to always remember to put your cable through the plug before you start soldering it. Just tie a knot in the end so it won't fall out that bit. Right, there we go. Now this actually has to be very short. Again, we have a plug just like the other end, so unfortunately this does involve quite a bit of fiddly soldering, and I don't know whether you'll be able to see whether this will even focus at this distance. Will this camera focus? No, I don't think it can. But there are numbers in here, and just like the other part, they're slightly more readable. I'll have to. There's 1, 2, 3. Now the important thing you must have done is write down what wires you connected to what numbers when you did the other side. Because if you haven't done that, then you're going to be you're going to have some fun. You can try and keep the same kind of colouring scheme. So number 1 on this is positive, which will be positive power supply, so that will be red. So we've got a red here, so we can use that. Number 2 for negative was blue even, so we can use blue. So we can keep red and blue simple for the power supply. Then everything else, if you connect it up wrong, isn't really going to do too much. We need to make sure we got so we got the 2 switches for the mic and water. So we need to decide what they're going to be. So I believe I had brown and purple before. We have a brown, let's just see, and we have a purple, yes, so we can do that. And then the rest is pretty much arbitrary. You can pick whatever colours you want, as long as you've connected them into an axis. It's not really going to matter. As long as you know what colours they are, if they're in the wrong axis, you can always just swap them round when you plug it in the computer and just swap the wires around inside the box, which we'll be assembling after we've done this. So it's pretty much the same procedure as before. You want to keep this really short though, so we're going to trim all these off quite short, because you've only got quite a short, smallish space in here which this has to screw into, so these have to actually be really short, so this is a quite fiddly affair. So first thing we should do then, decide what order. Do we do the ones at the bottom first? So it's probably best to do the ones in the middle first. So 4, 5, 6 and 7 are in the middle of this. So what's 4? So 4 is going to be purple, which is for the water, so we'll strip that off. Probably best at this point, you might want to strip all the wires you're going to use off. And then tin them all. So I'm just using a pair of cutters to strip these off. Yeah, I'm using grey, yes. Grey is going to be the boost control sensor. We're using yellow. I think the only one we're not using is this kind of pinky looking one. I'm not really sure quite how to call it a pink, but it's a bit of a faded pink. It's more like a flesh colour really. We're not using that one, so I'm not going to strip that one. Chop that one off if we don't use it. Blue, red, brown, we're using black. We can fan them all out. It's easier to do it now with the soldering iron. And it is each one before you put it in. And we strip that black. So you just gently pinch it and you just pull them off and you can strip it. You can use wire strippers, I don't think we're using that one. So if we hold that now in our wonderful handy dandy soldering tool, and then that keeps all the ends nice and neat. Now I don't think my soldering iron's quite going to be up to temperature. Did I not get the solder out? Let's get some solder out. There we go. Right. So let's put that more in the middle. We'll tin all of these. My solder wire is... I've not run that the best way around. Let's just go and sort that out. Shouldn't be doing this with a hot soldering iron like that, but there we go. Right, alright, that's nice and warm, so sure your wires are all together and then just tin all the ends. Oh, that's... might be necessary to twist these if they won't stay together. What you don't want is a loose hair like that. So, all like that. One of the points of tinning them is it keeps it all nice and together. Well, that one's got a bit wrong. do these ones. That's better. You just trim that a little bit off. There we go. Well, that will make them easier to solder onto this. Let's put that back in its holder. So, now it's up to you if you want to try and tin all these first as well. So put that out of the way for a minute. Which could be an idea. I haven't tried doing it this way, but I think I might. So we use nearly all of these. Just tin the ends. Each one. Trim that one up. Of course, as always, the key to soldering nicely is a nice hot soldering iron. Right, so hopefully we should be able to start soldering these together. Now this is quite a long, slow process, so I'll do a couple. Just to show you. Wild bits. Ooh. It's best to trim off. It's good. Right, so let's see. It's 1, 2, 3 that way. So perhaps we'll start with number 4, 5. Could put this in the little clamp here. So number 5 is right in the middle, and it's going to be yellow. We have a yellow, we do have a yellow. So now, all we should need to do is hold them together, keep the others out of the way. Heat it up, let it cool. Hopefully you don't get too many horrible strings like that connecting two up. That's what you don't want. Let's just get rid of that. Right, 5. So then we'll go with 6, which is white. Oh, now I might have to do this by hand. It's difficult to... 6 is right next door. So clamp it up in here. It's best if you just support the cable there. If you do these most awkward middle ones first, to the tiny little hair there I'm not happy with. And they're the most awkward. Then we've got 7, which is green. That's quite an easy one to do. Oh, that comes off. There we go. It's that easy to put them together once you've tinned them first. So that was obviously the easiest way to do this. I'd recommend doing this for both of the style of plugs. Right, 5. That one was 4 is here. Quite a lot of solder on it. 4. I wonder if we can suck a bit off that. There we go. Number 4 was going to be purple. If we get the purple round, to turn this round, you see we can just keep going like this. So there we go. So I'll keep going with this. I'm not going to bore you with every single wire being soldered, but it's just a patient matter of keeping going like that, and then we'll come to putting it back in the plug. So now we've soldered all the wires. We can move this out of the way. Soldered all the wires. Then the nice plug here, it should slide over. Look for anything, if you've got any little solder spikes sticking up or anything, just trim them off before you go any further. Then we can slide this back over the bit. It's a bit tight on that shrink sleeve. I'll just slacken this off a bit more. Screwdriver. Pull that down. This screws on like this. So you hold the end and that screws in. And always when you do these things on camera, they never go to plan. There we go. It screws in. There we can see. You might want to give it just a little gentle nip with a pair of pliers like that, and then we can do up the strain relief on the cable here. It's just these 2 little screws. Oh, don't drop it. Screws come out. There we go. The shrink sleeving will mean that has a bite, so it actually holds the cable nice and tight. And there you have your plug with the other end ready to go into the box, which we'll look at next. Okay, so next we come to fitting the circuit board inside here. By the way, if the nuts are a little bit stiff, what you can do is just warm them up a teeny bit with a blowtorch. That lets you just then insert them nicely in, just let it cool for a minute, and then we can remove the bolt. So that because sometimes the tiny hexagons are a bit tight, so that lets you insert the captured nut then into there, just by melting the plastic a little around it. You just have to let it cool for a bit. Right, we'll just fit the last one. Of course this won't light. Cool. And these are M2.5 nuts, and then you want some little Allen screws, and then we'll be able to fit the board. We'll just cooled off enough, we'll just take that out. plain nuts may be better in this than lock nuts, but it's what I happen to have around at the moment. Just trim that off. Right, then this takes standard M15 glands in here, so I'm going to fit a couple to this. Oh, I should have grabbed that spanner earlier. So the threads are already printed in, so you can just fit these. So this has, you can have one for this and then another one for other expansions in the future. And then we have some plugs for the other holes. So if you make other button boxes or things like that, you'll be able to use all the other features on the board on this. If I got a big fat screwdriver to wind those in. Oh. Maybe we have. So that'll so that's M16, sorry, M16, yeah, M16 glands. I'll give them a nip up in a bit. A little nip. Well, that's for the wires to go in, and then we can fit the board. There's a hole here for the USB socket on these boards, and you need you need these little M2.5. I think they're M2.5 by 5. I'd have to double check that. There's a tiny Allen key which I should have found in advance. Is this the one? Yes, this is the one. And then these can go through. Oh, now this is a fiddly job. I'll go through to your captured nuts. I'll get my tweezers because they may help in this case. So I'll fit some of these. Always the easiest to start. Just bring this here so I can see it. Ah. It's fell out. I think we've started. Don't mind any tight down till you get them in. This one over here is a bit tricky to get in this back corner. Best practice probably just to, you have to drop it in. Whoop. So then you have to put the Allen screw, Allen key through there, and you can get on it. So the Allen screw has to go through the other screw hole. Then you can get on it, just nip it up like that. So I haven't done any up tight because I don't want to lock it yet while we're doing it. Same goes for the one in the other corner. Just drop it in. Oh. Nope. Not got that. go. Just wind that down. We got the last one. Go in here, then we can just snip them all up. This one down. Still loose. There we go. This one wants to come down a bit more. Make sure they're all nice and tight. And there you go, you've got all your bits ready for inserting your cable as per your wiring diagram. Now the lid simply goes on, and you have four, where's one nice screwdriver, M4 by 10 screws. They just screw straight in the lid like that, just gently nipped up. So you put them four in once you've done your wiring. So next we come to do our wiring. We bring in our cable. So we can feed all our wires through the first part here. Just tighten up your glands so they're cables then secure. Nice long bits of wire, in fact mine are a bit short, so I can push a bit more through so it's a bit clear and nearer the board. There we go. Now you won't be able to put ferrules on these or anything, so they won't go in, but we can look at our, let me just bring up my my wiring chart I did earlier. So this is where writing everything down counts. So we know that number 1 is red, and red is the positive. So if we look in the board, we can see that there is positive and ground. Now we just need one positive and ground, and that will power everything. The amount of power that the little bits of these things take is almost nothing. So you just push down the little bit there. You need to wind the end round just to make the wire nice and small. They are very small connectors. Just push that down there with a little screwdriver, push that in, let it up, and that's it. Just give it a little tug, make sure you've gentle tug to make sure it's in. Everything in here is labelled, so we can take the next one, which will be blue, and that's the minus, so we can attach that to ground. And then when we put the plug in the controller, this will power everything up. So let's put that one in, and then we just carry on with our wiring. So we know then brown should be the microphone. There's our brown, so that go into switch 1. So we have ground and button 1, which we shall put that in button 1. So we'll press that down, feed that in there, and there we go, that'll be button 2. And then button 1 even. Button 2 is the water injection, which is purple. So we take our purple, we just strip it back, We click on push down button 2. Not quite. This is a lot easier than solder pin connections, which is why I prefer these boards really. All the buttons are laid out, you don't need a button matrix part or anything. Right, and then the next will be our axes. So we start with yellow. Now it doesn't really matter because you'll assign them in the game by moving them, so you could connect the axes in any one. It doesn't really make a lot of difference when you're assigning controls in games, but it just depends how pedantic you are with it really. White. Next one. You just work your way through the chart you made, so you might just lean over this to see where the bits come up. So you've got positive, negative, ground, positive, and then the signal goes in the middle. So we should have skipped one. As you can see, I don't need a positive and negative for every one. We've got that common in the actual controller. What were we? White. So the next one's green. Should be. Just tip that up so I can see it. So ground, positive. So we should skip 2 and go in. Green, black, and then grey. And that will be all 5 axes of our controller then. One, two, there. 1, 2, and then in there. And if we look, they should all line up with the correct segments. As you can see inside. Everything's labelled, so it's all quite clear. But we don't need this one, so we'll just trim that one off. Then we can put our lid on. See 4 of these screws, just started that one, just get some more out. Just tighten them down gently. She's got the wrong screwdriver for this. There we go. And there we go. You can then, this has some little lugs holes here, so you can just mount this out the way somewhere in your setup. And you've got your printer USB port there. You just need a standard printer cable. Connect this to your PC. It's basically plug and play and you're ready to configure and calibrate it.